Am I the idiot for telling my mom that my dad cheated on her? So I, 15F, told my mom, 33F, that my dad, 33M, has been cheating on her for years and is still in contact with them. So it all started when I was watching a storytime video with my mom about how the wife had found out that her husband was cheating. My mom had said, "Glad that it's not me dealing with that." I had responded with, "That's because you still haven't figured it out yet," without thinking. My mom turned towards me giving me a blank expression. I had realized what I said and responded it, "I'm joking, it's a joke." She clearly didn't believe me. She kept asking me questions and I kept trying to tell her it was a joke. Soon I gave in. I explained how my dad has been cheating on her since I was around the age of 9. At the time he just told me it was his friend and would constant take me with him to go see the other lady at her house and go out. My dad would always tell me to not tell mommy since he didn't want to give her the wrong idea. Because I was young and didn't know any better. Soon my dad stopped taking me with him to see the other lady, so I assumed that he stopped being friends with her. Then we had moved to a different state, so that was the end of it and I just forgot about her. Then one day when my dad was picking me up from school and the other lady had called him. He told me to say hi and I did. That's when I remember she was the other lady from back where I lived. And I had put the pieces together that he was cheating. I had been living with this thought in my head ever since that call. I guess I never really told my mom because her and my dad were still so happy. They never fought really. Plus I felt like I would be doing the wrong thing since I had kept it for so long. Even though I forgot. My mom broke down in tears once I finished telling her everything. She told me, "It's not your fault you didn't realize what was happening at the time. And I don't blame you for not telling me." I broke down as well because I felt so bad for telling her. She told me to go to my room as she was going to talk with my dad. I did as she said. Last night, I heard them arguing over this topic and I can't help but feel guilty I caused this to happen. This morning I found my mom gone, so it's just me and my dad. He hasn't spoken to me at all. So now I'm really worried, can someone explain if I was the asshole or not for saying something? I feel like I am. Edit. My mom would ask me why I would go out with my dad so much as a kid. I would tell her I visited my aunt, which we did. So my aunt knew he was cheating. My aunt had called me as well asking if things were all right. So I'm guessing my mom figured that out and called her. Edit number 2, June 21st short update. When my mom came back she brought my siblings to talk with us. She explained how mommy and daddy weren't a thing but will still be living together. Basically co-parenting in the same house I believe. My mom didn't exactly put it into detail but just said they weren't a thing anymore since my siblings understand that much. They are 12 and under. My siblings didn't question it. I did overhear my mom tell my dad she went and made out with her coworker out being angry and confused. I didn't hear anything else, but now my dad sleeps in our guest room and my mom sleeps in their room. I did talk with my dad and we are almost on good terms, but I want to be on good terms to make things less awkward, but I know it will take a while. I didn't expect for this to be the outcome, but I'm glad they didn't fully divorce to the point they live in 2 different areas, but not glad this happened at all. Comment 1. NTA. Your dad is despicable using you for a cover. Parents should never bring their kids into their shit and it absolutely sucks you were put in this position. Ultimately your mom deserved to know and make educated decisions about her life. Your dad's infidelity impacts her health. Others will tell you should have stayed out of it and kept your mouth closed, but I vehemently disagree. Cheaters deserve what they get. Again, it's just horrible that you're so young being dragged into your parents' relationship problems. Comment 2. 100% agree with you. Personal experience from years ago, at 16 years old I found out my dad's infidelity. Called the mistress up in front of both my parents, then began showing my mom everything immediately after. My dad didn't deserve a heads up about me finding out and being given a courtesy to tell my mom before I would. My mom was sick for months before we found out, and he was treating her horribly in that time. It broke my mom once she put it all together when I told her who I was on the phone with. I'll never forget her crying herself to sleep in my bed as I unearthed so much about what he was really up to with the mistress. Now for the next story. Am I the idiot for telling my dad, his wife and both their parents to fuck off and lay off my mom? My parents divorced when I was 7 because my dad was having an affair with his current wife and had gotten her pregnant. My life was a mess after. My mom was broken and my dad was really trying to bring me and my sister into this perfect family mold with his wife. But because he did a bad job of keeping me out of it, I knew, and I didn't like either of them for it. I still don't. I think his wife is a homewrecker because she knew us before she and my dad started their affair, and I think my dad is also a homewrecker, and a bad husband and even a bad dad to me. For breaking up my family in the way he did and causing so much instability, and for exposing it in a way that would hurt my mom but also air everything to me, yet expecting me to be okay with everything. Ultimately, my mom kept her distance from them and I respect that. She has never said a bad thing about them to me. But she did sit me down and tell me that she would not be able to present a friendly front with my dad and that when people hurt us, sometimes the healthiest thing is to avoid being around them so we don't fight or make things worse, and that was what she was doing. My dad and his wife ended up in a bad financial position 3 years ago and things at their house have been very tight. So my sister and I ended up staying with our mom and going to dad's sometimes. My dad had a birthday recently and we were all at his house, with his parents and ILs, and they all started talking shit about my mom not doing more to help the household when she knew my half-siblings were not doing great. They also brought up how my half-siblings had asked to meet her several times and she never did meet them and how she was petty and spiteful, and should be the bigger person and help kids who are her kids' siblings. I told them to fuck off with that shit and lay off my mom who owes none of them, even the kids, anything. I said if they wanted her to be more involved they should never have cheated behind her back, and my dad shouldn't have done the most to hurt her when he told the truth. My sister agreed with me. She said it's not like we even cared about the kids, so why should mom? We ended up leaving early and my dad and my grandparents have been on my case about being assholes to everyone. Comment 1. I do that too. My husband is pretty amazing and I already appreciate him, but I do it more when I read this sub a lot. I also find myself wanting to bang my head against the wall at why do so many women put up with such ridiculous bullshit from their partners? I always had a rule that I'd rather be alone than be with someone just to be with someone. Comment 2. It sounds like OP's mom was really as understanding and respectful as possible during the dismantling of her family, and I have a lot of respect for anyone who is able to do that. She is not responsible for funding her ex-husband's life with his new family, and no reasonable person would say that she was. It sounds like he really enjoyed feeling superior, and maybe told himself a lot of stories about how cheating on his wife and leaving her was not his fault, because she was not good enough for him. Now that he is having financial trouble, his inflated self-image is tarnished and he is trying to find someone to both bail him out and take the blame. If his ex-wife gives him money and accepts the responsibility, he can still feel superior while having the money too. My father was the same way. I went and see, because a person like that will tell themselves a lot of made-up stories to explain their life, where they are always the hero and justified in whatever they do. There will also always be at least one villain in these stories who is at fault for all their shortcomings and anything else that goes wrong. My mom was a villain in my dad's stories, and so was I. As an example, my dad borrowed money from me when I had my first proper job, not under the table, when I was 15. He borrowed several $100s. Then, he spent the next decade hounding me to pay him back. You know, because he doesn't borrow money, he only lends it because he is the perfect person. So of course he couldn't have borrowed from his 15-year-old kid, and therefore I must owe him money. With people like this, who play these types of intricate mind games, you need to just walk away. The only way to win their game is if you do not play. Now for the next story. Am I the idiot for not speaking to my cheating father for nearly 4 years? Me and my dad didn't have a very good relationship growing up. He was mine and my mom's abuser from as far back as I can remember, and when he and my mother split they had a very long custody battle, in which he involved his girlfriend and 2 children, who consistently harassed me and my mother physically and verbally. He ended up being granted partial custody over me when I was 10. From ages 10 to about 14 me and my dad began mending our relationship. He had dedicated a lot of time to visiting me, taking me on trips, buying me things, visiting me at home, etc. He and my mom also began to repair their relationship. He had broken up with his girlfriend and was single again. They discussed getting back together, moving back in together to be a family again. A couple of days after Christmas 2018, my dad had promised to take me to go on a shopping trip since he hadn't got me much for Christmas. He didn't pick me up until 5:30 p.m., and by that time most of the shops had closed. When I got into his car, he told me that I had better have brought my own money because he was broke. I was quite hurt by him saying this, but I had brought my own money, and so we began driving. He got a call, and his phone was linked to the Bluetooth in his car, so I heard every word. His best friend had called him and said something along the lines of, "That shopping trip with his ex-girlfriend's name today must have left you broke." I immediately looked at him like a what the fuck? He laughed awkwardly and agreed. I was sitting there shaking in anger, tearing up. He ended the call after a couple of minutes and it was dead silent in the car. He had the audacity to laugh and say, "You're gonna tell your mom about this, aren't you?" I did tell my mom a few days later, and she ended it with him. This happened when I was 14, and I am now 17. These last few years I have only had contact with him once. I told him I hope he gets into a car accident. He has tried to bribe me with days out, money, etc., and I have refused everything. We have not had contact since that day. My mom still keeps in contact with him now, and he is always asking for my phone number, or for my mom to take me to a public place and he shows up to surprise us. I am a very non-confrontational person and would rather die than make a public scene, and he knows this. He constantly contacts my mom asking her to tell me that he's been in a car accident, or that he had cancer and multiple other life-threatening things. I just cannot bring myself to believe him anymore, but I worry that one day he may be telling the truth. I'm not sure if I ever want to speak to him again after all of this. I have been told by multiple people that I'm being an asshole and need to give him closure for us to move forward. But I do not want him to get closure, as I don't feel like he deserves it. Am I the asshole for taking this so far and not speaking to him for nearly 4 years? Comment 1. NTA, I don't think you're in. For not speaking to him. You don't have to believe your father or believe in him. That's not what closure looks like. It's different for everyone. You owe him nothing, but you owe yourself the option of having no regrets pertaining to your father. When you were younger, you didn't know what you know now. You know what to expect from him now because he has shown you on multiple occasions who he is. Your mom has forgiven him and talks to him because she knows what she's dealing with, and she probably realized a long time ago hanging on to negativity ain't healthy. Whatever you need to do that gives you peace of mind, that is what you do. If that's maintaining no contact, then do that. If that's reestablishing contact with clear boundaries set, then do that. Whatever you decide to do, do not let anyone tell you that you're wrong or how you should feel. It's okay to feel how you do, and it's okay to decide how you deal with your father on your terms. Comment 2. NTA. He is a dishonest human being. There are so many ways that he has shown you the person he is. It's not inexcusable that you lost all respect for him as a father and as a human being. The worst being to catch him cheating again and showing you that you mattered less. He offered to take you shopping, insisted you pay because he overspent on his side chick while trying to get back with your mother. Stay as far away as possible. He definitely does not deserve a third chance.